Alright, good morning everybody. It is time to do a phase 2 build on this mini bike. You guys just saw recently an episode where we got this thing running. We put a new motor on it. We put a new CVT. It's got the Predator 224. It's got a custom exhaust. It's got the aftermarket intake. But I basically just got it together to where I could actually ride it. It only has a front brake right now. It's got this factory gas tank just strapped to the frame. So there's a few issues that we need to figure out to make this thing a really functional mini bike. Right now it does run and ride, but one thing we have to do is we need to build a gas tank for it. So that's going to be on this episode. Second thing we need to do is we need to make up some sort of rear brake. So I've got this rear brake rotor and caliper that I stole off of a scooter that I scrapped. So I kept this part, and this is going to become our rear brake. I've got a bracket designed to be cut out on the plasma table, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to weld that bracket that holds the rotor to the hub or to the wheel, and then we'll figure out a mounting for the brake caliper. And I have a handle, so I've got this handle here. This cable's actually, or hose isn't long enough, but we'll replace that. So we got this handle, and this handle even has a brake switch in it. So you can order these on Amazon or eBay. I'll put a link down below to all the parts that we use in this video. But so we got our rear brake handle here, and this is the same handle I have on my custom made fully from scratch mini bike. It's got this, this is actually an e-brake. So these are kind of cool. So you can set the e-brake on it, and then when you go to fire the bike up, it's not going to run away on you. So I like that feature of these. But so we got that. We got our caliper, we got our rotor, we've got a hose that should fit. So I got a hose, and I believe we have everything to make this project go. A couple other things we are going to address in this video. I got a new front tire, so we'll get that on there, and then we'll check this front brake and see if we can make it work better, because it's kind of sticky. When you pull the handle, it seems to return just fine. But I think when you're actually rolling the brake pads, something's going on, it's not releasing. So we'll try to address that and get our front brake working better. We'll get a new tire on there. We'll get that brake set up. What was the other thing? We're going to build a tank from scratch. And maybe a couple other things, maybe some lighting. We'll see. This is going to be a pretty big video. We'll see. Maybe it'll even break it up into another 2. I'm not sure. Maybe not. But let's go ahead and start with this guy. I've got the file to cut that on the table. I'll show you guys that, and then we'll clean that thing up and we'll get that ready to go on this wheel. We got to get this wheel off of here. Let's just get going and get a rear brake on this thing. Alright, so this is what happened. The first one I tried to cut, I had this nice piece of scrap. I was going to go ahead and use this and then chuck the rest of it. But it started to cut, and it wasn't cutting all the way through. It almost was. And then the torch actually bumped the plate and moved the plate when it moved. So that was a failure. And then our second one here, it was doing really good, except for it just didn't cut all the way through. It was really close. So I slowed the torch down more. I cranked the torch all the way up, and we got this one. So this one is good to go. I guess I wish I shouldn't have. I wish I didn't just dump that in there because I got to get it out later. But so we're gonna go ahead and get this the rest of the way out of here. We got to drill and tap this. There we go. There we go. The caliper, I built this mount so that it has slots, so if I need to, if the chain goes slack or whatever, you can slide it back and you can slide the caliper back. You know, if you tighten up the axle and slide it back, you can also slide the caliper. It's not a ton of adjustment, it's probably only, maybe like a half an inch, but it's plenty to get the job done for what we need to do here. There's other ways you could do this caliper mount, but I think this is the cleanest, and it keeps the rotor far enough away from the wheel that I can actually get in here and get to the valve stem. That was kind of an issue or a concern. Like if I tuck the rotor way in the wheel, the valve stem is going to run into it. And then on this side you have the sprocket. So you could put the valve stem on this side and have like big holes in the sprocket, or have a sprocket with holes and get to it. But this is a good solution. So we're to this point. Next is just putting the brake hose on and mounting the handle to the bars and then bleeding it out. So I'm going to do all that, and then I'll come back to you when we have an actual working brake. Alright, there we are. Brakes on, we got good pressure. So with these things, let's see if I can do this one hand. I don't know if I can do this one-handed. Yeah, I can. Alright. So you pull your lever in, and you pop that guy down, and that's holding pressure on the rear brake. And then when you want to release it, there you go. So we got a rear brake. And the line just runs down, goes under the motor, comes up, ended up being a good size, or good length. So, let's see, so we have a rear brake now. That project is totally done. Next, I'm going to focus on this front wheel. So I'm going to pull this wheel off. We're going to swap our tire over. We're going to take a look at that brake, that drum brake. Like, I have this idea where I want to put a disc brake on the front of this as well, but I don't have the parts yet, and I'm not sure if it's possible. So I need to get the parts and just see if it's even possible, if there's enough room for it to happen. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and service this front brake, take this thing apart, see what's in there, so we can grease some stuff up and get it moving good, because it actually works decent. But the problem is it just doesn't release right away when you let go of it. So let's do that. Let's get that thing apart. Let's get the new tire on there. Let's see how it looks. One thing, the size is a little bit different. So this tire here is a multi-track 5.3/4.56. I believe it's a 14-inch tire. I don't know. Right now, because it's deflated, it's hard to say what it's going to look like. But this tire here is a 15x6x6. So it's definitely wider, because I believe the 4.5 is the width. And then the 6 is the wheel, obviously. So I think that this might be slightly taller and slightly wider. So we'll see. Hopefully this actually fits in here, because we don't have a ton of room on either side of the fork. So hopefully it works. Let's just do it. Wah, wah, wah. All right, I wanted to show you guys what happened here. So I took this wheel apart, and I wasn't quite too happy with the condition of it, like especially right here. It's kind of thin. It would work just fine. I could put the tire on there. It's got a tube. It'd be fine. The real problem came when I realized that the brake shoes, one of them had lost its lining. So that's why the brake was getting stuck. It was probably getting jammed up in there. So I looked online, and you can buy those, but what I wanted to do was to swap this thing out and do a disc brake if I can. It's hard to say for sure. So then I started going through all my brake parts. I'm like, do I have drums, or do I have shoes that fit? Like, I could almost make, these are from a CT200 rear. I could almost make them work as these. Problem is, like, the casting, this piece right here doesn't fit, but I could probably make it work. But like I said, I wanted to do disc brakes. So I basically, and the other thing I ran into was, okay, well, I have this wheel. This is from my, well, I have a wheel and a half, actually. So this is from my Articat. So I have an Articat mini bike, and I raced it in the first Gambler mini bike race, and I broke the rear wheel. I only broke half of it. So I've got a wheel and a half now, because I replaced it with some new Isuzu rims, however you say that. So I have this spare rim and a half, and I didn't really like the way that this looks, and actually that's really heavy compared to this. It feels to be about twice the weight. So what I've decided to do, so I had all my brake stuff out, trying to figure out, these are some stock CT200 U-pads. This is the rear brake that came off of this bike. I ended up putting, or the front brake that came off of this mini bike. I ended up putting a disc brake on that one. So I was thinking, well, maybe I could run this disc brake, but I mean, this disc brake is way smaller than the one that's on here. This one actually works really good, so that's a positive about it. But what I ultimately, and then here's another brake caliper that I had laying around. So what I decided was, ultimately I want to do disc brakes on this because, one, you know, aesthetically I don't like the mismatching master cylinders, and two, you know, we're kind of doing like a resto mod kind of thing here, and we need to put a disc brake on here to match the rear. So that's what's going to happen. I'm going to run this mag wheel, and I'm going to run the best 2/2 of it, and then I ordered parts, so this may not be in this episode, it might be in a future episode, but I'm going to run this wheel, so we're going to get the new tire on this wheel, and we're going to get the spacing right, because the spacing is probably, it might be different, the spacers, so we're going to make sure that all that's good, and get this this wheel fitted on here, and then we'll ditch the brake for now, and then we'll come back when we have the actual disc brake parts, and we'll hopefully get a disc brake on this. And then I think the next thing we're going to move on to is making our gas tank. So let's just get this done, get all these parts put away for now, and then we'll move on to making our gas tank. Alright, so now we're just down to a rear brake, which is a lot of mini bikes, but we are going to get a front brake back on this thing. It's kind of funny, I do like this tire. It's kind of square, so I hope it rides okay, but the rear is very square as well. But this tire is pretty beefy, you know, it feels out this front end pretty a lot better, but that might cause us problems when we go to mount the disc brake, so we'll see. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. The red, like I didn't plan this weird blue and red combination, it just happened. You know, you got the 224 comes with a red cover. This thing, these wheels used to be on my other bike, and I painted them red because I thought it would be cool, and there it is now. We got two red things on this bike, on this blue bike. So the next thing we're going to work on, man, I'm really digging this thing. I gotta tell you guys, this thing is coming together, and I really, really like this bike. The next thing that's going to boost it to the next level is a tank. So I got to design and start, I got to basically get out pen and paper and just start taking measurements and design and make a tank for this thing. And I think that's really going to boost it to the next level. These things had a tank from the factory. Try finding one of those, it's going to be impossible. So we're just going to make one. I got some aluminum. I've got a cap that I bought a while ago. It's just been sitting in my bin. And I'm like, I'm just going to use this for something eventually. So we got this aluminum cap. It's a pretty simple one, but it's got a vent built into it, which is kind of nice. So we'll get that sucker put in there. We'll use this guy. And then I've got a sheet of aluminum. The guy down at Bishop's Fab in Greenville, Tennessee, he gave me this piece of aluminum for a very, very good price. So hopefully this should be enough to make this tank. It should be. I don't know why it wouldn't be. It's got to be at least maybe enough to make two. But that's what we got. So I need to start taking measurements. It's going to be a triangular tank that follows the look of the bike. I mean, everything, the whole frame is triangular from front to back. The seat is triangular. So it's not going to go, it's going to be about as wide as the rails here. And then, yeah, I'm not really sure how tall yet, but I'm hoping that it's at least a gallon. My plan is to build a little sump so that there's going to be a little part that hangs down back here. That's going to make construction of the tank a little bit more difficult, but there'll basically be a sump back here which will hold a little extra fuel, and it's just a nice place for all the fuel to run into, so you don't have weird sloshing problems and starvation. So that's where we're going. That's what I'm gonna start on. I'm gonna start taking measurements. We got a piece of foam last night, and my wife is going to unstaple this seat, and we're gonna put a nice new piece of foam in here, because I think I told you guys before that this thing is, there's nothing to it. There literally, this foam has zero integrity. I mean, it's just, there's nothing to it. So I don't know, it's probably just because it's old, but, or maybe because I am a little heavy. But yeah, we're gonna get some new foam in here. The seat cover itself is really nice, so we'll just unstaple it, and hopefully we can just unstaple it, put the new foam in, staple it back on, and hopefully that'll be good for it. But I'm gonna get started on this tank. Alright, so I have this general shape here. So this is our triangular shape. This is like a top view. This would basically be a side view. So I'm just going to create this basically triangular box on the bottom that's 4 inches high, 4 inches deep. And that, I just kind of tried to calculate it. It's about 3/4 of a gallon. But then we're going to step it up a couple inches. I'm not sure if it's just going to be 2 or 3 inches taller. So overall, it's going to be 6 or 7 inches tall. I don't think I want to go as far as like 8 inches. And then we'll basically just, I'm not sure what these measurements are yet, or these angles, but we'll decide where this cap needs to sit, and we'll create some pieces to go this way, then we'll create some filler pieces. It's just going to be kind of an organic thing. I'm not really 100%. I'm not that great at just making this or drawing this all out. There's some weird angles that are going to be in this, so I'm basically just going to start with this bottom shape. We're going to cut this out, and then we're going to build the sides of it, and then we'll build off of that. Okay, so I wanted to explain what I'm doing here. So I got my pieces cut out. I went and took them on the belt sander and just gave them a quick run down the sides to clean off all the junk. And now I am brushing where I'm going to weld, because, and I have this stainless steel brush. I have it marked as aluminum only, because I don't want contamination on it. But the reason that you do this with aluminum is that aluminum oxidizes, and this shiny part you see in the middle here, this is aluminum oxidization, and it melts at a way higher temperature than the aluminum does. So if you're new to aluminum welding, or you're thinking about trying it out, you know, you'll go in there and you'll try to like run a bead on this piece of aluminum, and you'll be like, man, this isn't wetting out, it isn't doing what I want it to, you know, it's not melting when you think it should. It's because the aluminum oxidization is really hard, and it melts at a really high temperature. So you'll heat it up, and then by the time you melt through the oxidation, by the time you melt through the oxidation, you just blow through the whole thing because it's way too hot. So what you do is you brush it, you remove it somehow. You can remove it with a belt sander or some sort of sanding device, but you don't want contamination, because you're doing this and you're just basically, if you have something on this, you're going to be pushing it into the aluminum, and that's not good either. So you want, with aluminum, when welding aluminum, you want cleanliness. Cleanliness is key. So that's why I'm taking the extra few minutes it's going to take. It's not easy. Well, I mean, it's not hard either, but it just takes time to actually go through, remove the oxidation, and then that way, when I go to weld this, I'll have a much better weld. Alright, that's the start of it right there. I think that's probably pretty close to a gallon. So what it's going to do from here is it's basically going to go up and then down. It's going to go up, it's going to have a flat spot for the cap, and then go down in the front. I was actually looking at this and I was thinking about it the wrong way when it was on the table. So I'm glad that I put this back on here, because I would have been sorely disappointed. I don't know why I was looking at it. I was looking at it in my mind like this was this side for some reason. I don't know. But, so, this is it right here. There's still a lot more that has to happen. I got to build those parts. I want to still build that sump that's in the back. So I'm actually going to drill some hole, maybe just one hole, probably one hole in here, one good size hole, where the fuel will flow down into the sump. So when you see me do that, you don't be confused, like, why is he drilling a hole in the bottom of the tank? But I basically have to go through and I have to think about where I want my cap to land, which is probably like right in here somewhere. I don't think I want it clear up here. I think I want it like right about here. So I got to think about that. So I got to make this piece basically come up and meet a flat spot. And there's going to be a piece that comes up this way and meets the flat spot, and then there'll be pieces on the sides, and then there'll be the sump. So there's still a ton of work to do on this. So I'm going to keep trucking on it, and this is just the basic shape. I also have to build a mount off the bottom. So this tank, or this frame has this mount down here for the factory tank. I'm basically going to build an aluminum plate that sits in here and has, I think I'm going to do nut certs, so I can bolt right through 3 of these factory holes, and then that piece will get welded to the bottom of the tank. It'll be kind of like standoff. It won't be, you know, there'll be a gap basically between the bottom of the tank and that, so that way the nut certs have room to go into, and it won't be sealed up. It'll be open on the ends or whatever. But so we have to do that too. We have to do a mount for it too. So we got a ton of work to do on this tank. Let's keep on going. Alright, so we're getting pretty close on this. I wanted to show you guys. Oh man, I melted something on there. Maybe that was my shoe. No, that was the liner from the thing. Anyway, so this guy here is our mount. You can see I got those nut certs in there. Whoop. And then this bolt's right in here. Now, I don't know. This is just the way it turned out. I don't know how the original gas tank mounted in there. It must have had like a little recess in it or whatever, but this is what worked out for me. I think I'd probably add another support up here, but I'm gonna get it welded to the tank. That's the important part, is getting this bolted in and then actually getting it marked on the tank, because I can't weld it in here. There's no way possible I get the welder in there. So basically what I gotta do is I gotta get the tank set on here, positioned perfectly, and mark the ends. At least this is what I'm gonna try to do, is mark the ends of where these sit. Okay, and then that way the tank will be perfect. I can pull it off, flip it over, lay this on there, and get it welded to the tank. So I gotta bolt this thing back in, and then we can do that. I think this should be plenty to hold this tank on for sure. And I got a lot of the welding done on this. I've still got some here, 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 here. You know, there's still quite a bit. So that's pretty much it right there. We got some more welding to do. We got to get this marked. And then, you know, we got to make sure everything's nice and equal or even. Equal, even, whatever. And we'll get that sucker welded on there. And we'll keep on trucking here. We're getting close. I'm hoping to have this tank done today. Alright, here we go. Still a little bit warm. I decided I didn't like these lines going down the side of the tank. So I ground them down, and I kind of knew I didn't have enough penetration on one side. So when I ground it down, I did find a crack. Not a crack, but you know, basically the line where these two came together. So I got in there, got some good penetration on it, sanded it back down. It's not bad. It's not my best. It's not my best aluminum welding, but I think it's a pretty cool little tank. So there's our mount down there. There's our sump. I built up some weld on here, and we're going to drill and tap this for a barb fitting for fuel line. But for now, I'm going to take this inside and I'm going to water test it. I'm going to fill it full of water, see if it has any leaks. And also at the same time, I'm going to hopefully be able to calculate how much fuel this holds. So make your guesses. I'm thinking a gallon and a half. Alright, well that was a success. No leaks, which is awesome. I was expecting to have something that I would have to fix. But now, man, I keep rolling this thing around on this table and it like picks up little burrs of junk that's on the table. Ugh. Now, I'm going to drill and tap this. And I'm hoping I have a fitting over there somewhere. But, so we're going to drill and tap this for a fitting. And then we're going to go through and we're going to finish the tank somehow with either with sandpaper or with something else. We'll see. I got a couple of options. But, so first, we're going to go ahead and finish it up by drilling and tapping this hole. Because that's a crucial part of getting this. Because we got to be able to get the gas out of the tank. And then move on to the finish. I don't know if I want to paint this one or not. I mean, it's aluminum, so it's not going to rust or anything, but man, it's kind of, I don't know. It needs something on it. It's just so boring. It's kind of really tall on the sides. So, let's get after it. Let's drill and tap this. Alright, you guys, I'm pretty happy with this. You know, I was putting this thing on here and I had the seat off, and it looks kind of goofy with the seat off because it's just so tall. But with the seat on, it looks super nice. And the finish that I used, you know, I did some work with the sander, so I used basically 220, or it was 120 and then 220, and then I went at it with that rotary sander, or I don't know what to call it, but it's a tool from Eastwood. I think there's some other company that maybe makes one like it, but it has these different drums, and that one was like a 240 drum, something like that. I have another one that's like a 320, so you can go even higher, and then I have one that's a 180 or something like that. But I just took the 220F. The 240 drum to it which is basically just Scotch-Brite. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. It's a 240 grit, I believe, but it's also just Scotch-Brite. It's like a red Scotch-Brite, and I just took that to it and tried to make everything go in the same direction. And I like the way it turned out. I still got to put some decals on it. I haven't decided exactly which ones yet, so I'm holding off on that. But I really am digging this thing, and the next thing we got to do, though, is fix this seat, because this seat just ruins the whole thing and makes it horrendous to sit on. So we're going to go ahead and pop the cover off this seat, put some new foam on it, and I'll show you guys when we're done with that. It's pretty boring stuff. I'll let you know if I find anything interesting, but that's what's next. We're going to fix this seat. Alright, so that is it. Tank is done. We got a couple of decals on there, nothing too crazy. My wife and I worked on recovering the seat. She patched a little hole that was right here in the corner. Put some new foam in it. It's much more comfortable. But that's pretty much it. We're going to take her for a little cruise, see how she does. We've already driven her once, but not with the tank and the new front tire and all that. So let's check it out. supposed to be a really good hill climber, and this is going to be the test. See if I can make it up this hill. The steepest hill on our property. Yeah! Oh no! I haven't been up here since we had a really good storm the other day, and it looks like we got some new trees down. Yep. That's a bummer. I got some work to do. We can't even go all the way around the trail. The other way's blocked too by another tree, so I got a bunch of work to do. Just ran over this one. That's a new tree right there. New down tree. Alright, testing out the rear brake. Works really good. Especially for just having a rear brake. There's another tree that came down right there. Or it hasn't come all the way down. Tree blocking our trail. Let's try it again. No, but we'll stay. that's that. This thing is pretty fun to ride. It is great on the road. It's great at climbing hills. The suspension is meh. You know, the back is actually pretty decent. I'm hearing some noise because of my cover. I didn't quite trim it enough. Once you sit on it, it kind of comes up and it rubs along here and up here, you can see. But that's no big deal. It's kind of self-clearancing. But that's it for now. There's more to come on this bike. We're gonna try and figure out a front brake, headlight, tail light, some other stuff, a kickstand. So stay tuned for a future episode on that. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please smash that like button for me, hit the subscribe, hit the bell if you want to get notified of future videos coming out from DJ's Hot Rod and Fab. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.